There's a lot of digital presses out there. I've used some of the ones in this picture. There's different types of things. The two main ones are inkjet and xerography, but there are others. Xerography was invented by none other than Xerox, of all people. It's actually named after them. It's also called the electrostatic imaging, or sometimes laser printing. It's all the same thing. It's the dry toner based systems, and inkjets, well, they squirt ink. These are also known as non impact because nothing touches the paper. No touching, no touching. I'll put that video somewhere else in a link so you can see the no touching thing. But, anyways, there's no force and there's no contact. It's all done either through actual droplets being sprayed or droplets or toner being attracted, uh, electromagnetically charged to adhere to the paper. It's good for short run jobs. In fact, after the big recession in 2008, right around the time I was really getting into the swing of my career, the first time around, I happened to be fortunate to work for a small print shop at the time. A lot of the big ones took huge hits because many companies, as the economy turned bad, all because people gave faulty loans on no credit things. Uh, I don't know. I'm actually not an economist. I'm a printer. But all I know is the big companies stopped buying printing from other big printing companies. So you used to have giant companies buying giant advertising campaigns and spending millions of dollars to get millions and billions of copies of things printed and mailed everywhere. Suddenly, with the recession, the first thing they slashed was their marketing budgets, which, by the way, is not the right thing to do. You don't want to cut your intake when times are bad. You probably want to cut other things and increase your marketing budget because you're fighting for a smaller and smaller market out there of people who are willing to spend money. So suddenly stopping advertising doesn't actually help your company. This is just stuff I've witnessed, by the way. I'm not trying to proselytize any of my personal economic or political views on anybody because they're not that well informed. I'm just telling you what I saw as a printer during that time. Anyways, I was fortunate to work for a small shop that was primarily digital. And we actually saw an increase in printing requests on smaller runs. Suddenly, in the recession, people were a lot more careful about how much they printed and what they wanted to do. So they wanted to purchase just what they needed. They didn't want a million postcards, they wanted 100 postcards to send to the right people. And the shop that could do 100 postcards by the afternoon was the shop that survived. And let me tell you, my little shop up in Chino I worked for, we were that shop. We did quite well during those years and have survived, and they're stronger than ever. I sometimes miss it, but I really do like teaching. Sometimes you call it on demand because people can call you up and say, hey, I need this thing printed today. And you're like, okay, cool. Obviously, that's not an actual transcript of a real transaction, but that's the gist of it. And you can produce books. Books can be run digitally if you're doing a small enough quantity. You can do flyers, newsletters, proofs. Proofs are big, banners, labels, signs, cardboard cutouts, remote control airplanes. I don't know. All sorts of things can be done using these techniques. So, how it works right here is showing you the xerographic process. So, you have a drum made of selenium, which is a rare earth material, and it's charged positively. It's ionized. And then it's negatively ionized where there's not an image. So the image, the part of the image, sorry, the part of the drum that you want to have an image on, and sometimes it's not a drum, by the way, sometimes it's a belt. They found a way to elongate it into a longer belt so you can do larger images rather than large images based on the circumference of your cylinders. But anyways, you have the positive and negative charges, and then you charge the toner particles with a negative charge. As you all know, magnets or electrical charges of the same charge repel each other. Negative and negative don't want anything to do with each other, neither does positive and positive. Opposites attract. So your negative toner particles and your positive image on the magnetic plate attract the toner particles to it just where you want them. And the size of your halftone dots that you can produce are limited by two factors, although one is much more a factor than the other. Factor one is the diameter of the laser spot you're able to create using a focused laser beam. The other factor is the size of the toner particle itself. And that is limited by health and safety concerns because if you breathe dust particles that are too fine, they go into your lungs and give you, I think it's called mesothelioma, which is the variety of lung cancer you get when you work with asbestos or something. It's very bad, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Whether I like you or not, I don't want you to have mesothelioma. If I don't like you, I want you to apologize. Anyways, that's me on that one. So, um, but I like all you guys. Don't worry. But anyways, Because of that, we're limited to a 1/1200th of an inch diameter for these smallest toner particles, because any smaller you run serious health risks for people running the machines. It becomes airborne in the wrong ways. So the good thing about non-impact and digital is short notice. People can ask for things same day. It can be a little annoying to try and work in this kind of environment where you have to produce everything on demand all the time, but it can also be a fun challenge and you can get a lot of things done quickly. Quick turnaround. Again, they can ask for something with short notice and actually get it. When you're doing short production runs, it's economical. It doesn't cost too much to do small runs. And you can do variable or personalized content. This was my career for the 5 years directly preceding my starting to teach. I ran variable data print systems at a print shop. I did postcards and mailers and other personalized swag and things for people, all based off of integrating data through a digital press. The big thing about digital printing is you don't need to make plates. So every single image on a lithographic print, if you make plates and you run them through a litho press, you're running the same thing every single time, no matter what, because you had to make one plate. And if you wanted to change the picture, you have to physically make a new plate. Same story for flexo, gravure, and screen printing, and it's just even more trouble and more money. But with digital, you are you are ionizing a metal plate instead. You're only ionizing. You're just shooting a laser at a reusable belt, and it is simply temporarily charging it to attract toner where you want it. And it gets reused. The very next thing, you can run a different job or a different page. You can send a book to print, and instead of printing page 1 a million times and page 2 a million times, page 3 a million times, you can actually have it print page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through the whole book and pop out the other end. Some cases it can even bind it for you. A couple disadvantages. Size limitations. A lot of them don't do larger than 11 by 17. Which sounds big if you're used to at-home retail printers, but in commercial printing, you're often printing 40, 60-inch wide sheets of parent sheets of paper, so you can print lots of copies on one sheet and run fewer sheets. Can't do that on digital exactly. They're limited by size, what they can run, for many reasons. Some of them economics, some of them technological limitations. Also, the general business model for digital presses is that you don't exactly pay to buy your ink or toner. You pay per sheet your machine runs on a contract with the manufacturer. And although I decry sometimes these kinds of subscription services, there are some real big advantages on this one. One of them is kind of like leasing a car versus buying one: maintenance. Every press goes down at some point. Every machine, every system fails. So count on it failing and plan for it failing, and that's how you make stuff work. So the good companies, I really do like the business ethoses of Xerox and Canon when you work with them. They're very good about coming out quickly and fixing your machine when something goes wrong, because there is a when. If you're running tens of thousands of sheets a day, you're gonna run into problems. You can't do the same thing over and over and over without there being an issue at some point. Like I said, every machine can fail. Every printer fails. The real test of a company's metal is how well they handle it when it fails. So by renting the machines instead of buying the machines so much, since that seems to be the business model, and having them fix it, you don't pay per the amount of ink you use, you pay per sheet. Now here's the issue with this: on long production runs, that there's no bulk discount. When you're running litho, you make your plates and you run paper, and the more paper you run after a certain point, the cheaper the job gets, because you've already made your plate and now you're just paying for paper. With digital, one click costs a penny. Click meaning the name of what they call one sheet printing costs a penny. 2 sheets cost 2 pennies. 3 sheets, 3 pennies. And it's cheap for a while, but after a point, that line is a straight line of cost. You just start multiplying the millions or billions of copies times the charge you're paying the company for using their press, and that really does add up far quicker than you think it does. So in conclusion, there's always a time and a place for all these different types of printing. Even letterpress still has a time and a place. Like a toolbox full of tools, it's a matter of choosing the right one at the right time. There's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of things that need to be done and many things to print on. And it's all about choosing the right process and setting up your files correctly for that process for whatever it is you're trying to print for whoever wants it. That's it for today. Thanks for listening.